You're listening to the Vint Podcast, where we bring you interviews and stories from around the world of wine and spirits. From winemakers and critics to sommeliers and master distillers, we'll explore the people and businesses who are instrumental in shaping the future of today's food and drinks culture. Enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Vint Podcast. My name is Brady, joined once again in the studio by Billy Galanko. Billy, it's been a little bit since we got to sit down and do a proper recording.
Yeah, we had you on the intro last week, but yeah, we've been doing a bunch of interviews without you, so I'm glad to have a full Billy and Brady episode this week.
That's right, yeah. Coming up, we'll intro as we always do, Austin Hope, but I can't remember the last time we had a producer on that is so ubiquitous across. I think like different folks interested in wine kind of recognize their product as quality. Kind of both. They have the critical acclaim. They have the commercial interest among just kind of casual wine drinkers. Austin Hope wine. So really great to have Austin on today. We'll talk about that later. That's what folks can look forward to. But when you hear about what you've been up to, what have you been drinking?
Yeah, you'd have been proud of me. I have a buddy moving away from LA to Chicago, and I was trying to. We had like a little going away meal last week, so I was trying to get a wine that the same vintage that he moved here, and it was 2016. I was looking through my wines. I have some like tucked away that are really hard to get at right now, so it's possible there's a 2016 in there, but for some reason I only have 2015 and 2017s that I was, that were close. So I ended up going to the 2017, but it was a Ridge Merlot estate, Ridge, so from the Montebello estate. It was fantastic. I love Ridge Merlot. I mean, I know you love Ridge in general, but I shared it with 5 other guys who are not wine people, and they like raved about it like the whole time, and it was nice to see. It was actually really, really nice because normally I show people wine and they'll either say it's really good, but I even like went downstairs and like he's at his apartment building and they were like grilling up on the roof, and I went downstairs and like got something, came back and they were like talking about the white wines they liked. Like it actually like sparked wine conversation among like very much not wine folks. So it was like, oh, this is nice. Cool. So yeah, it's great.
Santa Cruz Mountains will do that to you.
Yeah. Well, it was so. This guy actually had a follow up, like a going away thing that was a little larger with a bigger group later, and his brother was trying to explain to his friend the wine, and that his brother's closer to 40, and his friend is a lawyer in LA. I mean, I think he's from California. Well, no, I think he might have grew up on the East Coast, but he's lived here for decades, and he's a lawyer, so they drink nice enough wine. He had never heard of Ridge at all, so he was like asking me more questions about it. I was like, "Are you guys?" So it's like one of the top. I was like, if you meet any sommelier in the U.S., if they list their top 5 U.S. producers, I guarantee Ridge will be in there for almost all of them. So that's how I explained it.
It's always weird to talk, like if someone drinks a lot of U.S. wine and doesn't know Ridge, then they probably only drink Napa, like the Valley specifically.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's what this guy said. He's like, "That's a great reco. I'm going to Napa next week, though. Do you have any recos there?" I was like,
"Yeah, of course." Funny. Yeah,
yeah.
I have doing a similar thing. A close friend of mine's getting married, and for his bachelor party, I'm going to take up a wine from the year that him and his future wife met. So it's 2016 actually as well. And I'm taking the Sterling Iridium. I don't know if you know that bottle from Sterling. No. I think they served it at like a recent Emmy Awards thing. I think they served like the 2015 at like the Emmys a couple years ago. That wasn't how I heard about it, but I had acquired the bottle like just before that, and then I saw it. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But yeah, and it's a really interesting bottle. It's like black glass. I'm actually not sure. I think it might be 100% cab, but I'm not certain.
They just gave it a name.
Yeah, Sterling Iridium. I guess I look it up. But anyways, it's a black glass bottle with like kind of really unique silver kind of like shoulders on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like a really elegant looking bottle. So I'm gonna get like a white paint pen or like a silver paint pen and have all the guys at the bachelor, write something on it or whatever. So after we drink it, he can keep the bottle and because it like something that looks nice enough on a shelf kind of thing. So we'll do that.
Nice. No, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
Let
that
me see
idea a
what
lot.
it is. Cab. Let's see. I bought a ton of 2016s.
While you're
back
looking
when
that up,
2016 was big.
yeah, but like all of California, right?
Yeah,
'Cause-
exactly. Yeah. It's a great year.
Yeah, all of my stuff that I was looking through I had a lot more Italian wine than I expected. I mean, I have others that are under my I have like stuff with all tucked away. So I think the reason I had a lot of 2015s, I think these were all like Barbaresco, Barolo, and like Brunellos, which I know 2015 wasn't the best year, like it's 2013, but it was still pretty good. So I guess somehow I've just randomly acquired them. So, while you're looking that up, though, I also went to this like it's supposed to be a speakeasy within a whiskey bar, so it's like the best whiskeys of that place. And had like a flight, and the server wasn't the most helpful, but the main thing I had was a Glen Moray that was made with bare barley, which is like a native landrace barley. So that was pretty cool. He also gave me like an American single malt for free, and then some other one that you would have recognized that I don't know as well. It was a bourbon. It's one of the ones that has like a little figurine on the top. I forgot the producer's name, like the horse thing, Blanton's. But it was only made for the Japanese market.
It's the is it the green label one or green, red, or black, something like that?
I don't think so. I don't know if you can see this, but like it looked kind of like this.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I can't tell. Is the label red or is it brown?
It's like tan. Yeah.
Tan. Yeah, it's the normal. Okay, it must
just
be
Blanton's SFB. Sorry, this is great podcasting for everyone. But yeah, the guy did a horrible job at explaining any of them, so I was just like, I'm not going to go back there. But anyways, neither here nor there.
Yeah, I found this Sterling Iridium. It's 100% cab, but it's 18 months and 91% French, 9% Hungarian. I see Lisa Perrotti-Brown, 93 points. Wine advocate.
Friend of the program.
Yeah, friend of the pod. That's right. Concentrated, robust, full-bodied. I'm sure the guys will like it.
Nice.
So,
anyways, could be my description for the Ridge.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, that's good. Also wanted to note before we forget, this is our 100th episode. So, thank you. Thank you to everyone for tuning in and listening to us each week. We've enjoyed gathering sommeliers, producers, folks from all across the wine industry for you each week. Really enjoyed this format.
All right. Well, speaking of cab, we can talk about our man, Austin Hope here. You wanted to do a little bit of intro since he was one of your favorites before you got on Vint.
Sure, yeah. Like a lot of folks, I think, who are familiar with Austin Hope or even just familiar with the wines of Paso Robles, which I talk about a lot, and Billy and I have done several interviews from producers in Paso and the Central Coast. He's kind of Austin's wines for a lot of people, I think, are probably introductions to Paso Robles, and we talk about that on the podcast. They make premium wines across categories. Across varietals at different price points. Really, I think all but their reserve Austin Hope Cab is under $75. So their entire portfolio ranges from $15 to $75. Really wines for everyone. And Austin, his family have been pioneers in Paso over the last 30 years as it's really kind of come on the map. And a lot of growers there are transitioned to growing grapes. And now there are well over 200 producers in the Paso region and the sub AVAs there within. So awesome to hear Austin's perspective on how the region has changed, how they've marketed themselves over time, all the little things that they've done, just testing things out as sort of they got up to scale, and then how their perspective on the market and perspective on their brand has changed as they come into really, prominent national distribution channels and, widely distributed coast to coast, selling and making and selling a lot of wine, and working with a ton of different growers. So, and still maintaining really high quality. Austin gave a lot of really good perspective on that, I thought.
Yeah, I think we've touched on Paso a number of different ways so far on the podcast, and this was an interesting one because his family is really one of the legacy families. There isn't as long of a high quality winemaking back like history in Paso as there are in other places. So his family going back 30 plus years in planting wine grapes on a larger scale, like a very concerted effort, is really cool. And it was great to hear how that's evolved over time, how they're really working with different terroirs, and they're really trying to create wines that are available at all price points, but that also like do the region justice. And then they're also exploring having additional new varieties planted. They're testing out different things. So I really like to hear that they weren't, just trying to do only more of the same thing. It's a lot of testing and growing and trying to help local growers gain knowledge as well. So I thought it was fascinating podcast, or not podcast interview.
Yeah.
This is a great podcast.
I'll just add, I appreciate every interview we do where we hear from someone who either went through a rapid expansion of their portfolio and in terms of the scale of their business, or got acquired, like when we talked to Dan Petroski or others. I guess Tomas at Lingua Franca as well in their project. I think we've heard over and over again, these really high quality producers are able to maintain and even elevate quality at scale. It sounds like Austin and them have done a great job at increasing quality and continuing to reinvest in ensuring that quality doesn't dip with scale, but actually, hopefully, in some instances, improves.
Yeah. I think with Dan and also Andrew Jones, also based in the Central Coast, they were scaling quality, and Andrew Jones at Field Recordings, by adding in those different varieties too. So I think that's part of what's cool to hear him talking about, like, we know it works well, but we're also expanding, and that also adds blending components and helps maintain a lot of these wines. But before I forget, before we completely get to the interview, speaking of rapid expansion, I wanted to do my wine of the week, or what we're drinking this weekend as well.
Yeah,
and yeah, so I was inspired this weekend. We were actually at the same going away party thing. And one of our friends is from Argentina originally, and he was going down there, and we got to talking a little bit about, what was going on. He's like, oh, there's an election going on. And I actually had no idea. I don't think many people keep up with the regular Argentinian elections, but it made me think that we haven't really touched much on the podcast. Even if we had was his name Santiago or Diego? Santiago. Yeah, God, I wanted to make sure I got it right, but on the pod about why Argentinian wines can be so affordable. I have a ton of friends who absolutely love Malbec, even if they're not that into wine, from Argentina. So there's 2 points I want to make. One is about the unique quality of the Argentinian wines, and that will be Argentinian Malbec I'm specifically talking about, and then also the affordability and kind of TLDR and why they're affordable. First, a lot of the Argentinian Malbec that you love from Mendoza, not all of the regions are super high, but places like the Uco Valley and some other places are very high elevation. So what this allows, and I'm talking about like over a mile in some cases above sea level, this allows for hot days and cool nights, which everybody knows helps ripen during the day. And then the cool nights help kind of stop that ripening and allow acid to be retained. Also, the elevation allows the sun rays to actually be stronger. So that creates kind of thicker skins, which ends up darker color, darker tannin. But what that also does is allows them to ripen fully phenolically rather than just developing just sugar. So it's ripening all of the fruit and the flavors in the skin, not just creating alcohol. So there's this really unique dynamic that you're getting in high elevation Argentinian Malbec that actually does make it different and unique. So you're not crazy if you're saying you like this Malbec and maybe you don't like another one that's maybe grown in California for whatever reason. So I think that's really cool. I've always loved that. And then the second piece is the affordability. there's always been a really good exchange rate between, not always, but in the recent past, between the US dollar. It's been very strong in Argentina. So if you go to visit there, I've always heard you can eat like a king. Your dollar goes a really long way. And in return, when they're selling the wine to the US, they're actually able to sell that at relatively affordable prices for us and still kind of make a profit or make things work down there, because they're getting USD in return. And that's why exporting to the US is such a lucrative market for them. So I just want everybody to also think about that when they're going and looking at Argentinian wines, and they're like, wow, why is it so cheap? It must not be good necessarily. That's not always the case. You can find excellent wines at really good values from Argentina, just because of kind of the way the economy works. And the election made me think of that, because I was looking at the results today, and it looks like the party that's been in power, that has overseen 100% plus inflation over the past year, is actually leading and is now going to a runoff. So we might be able to maintain our value for a while more.
Nice. Yeah. I started exploring more South American wines after we did our South American collection. And we featured Senya from Chile and Cheval de Andes were two that kind of stood out, and I purchased after we did that collection, which is Mendoza, and the Cheval de Andes is certainly one of the top wines in South America, and I think the retail is around $120, $130. So yeah, a ton of value down there. I mean, when you talk about Napa Valley, like average to slightly above average producers wines starting at $120 in Napa, being able to acquire easily one of the top wines in the region down in Argentina is pretty cool.
Yeah, I meant to bring this up right at the beginning. I can't believe we forgot. Just tacking on Brady's note there about emailing him. You have to be over 21 to receive wine, and Brady will actually vet you.
That's right.
Before sending you wine. So we're not just sending it to anybody who can hear us. Yes. For all the lawyers out there, we're covering that.
Yep. Here's Austin Hope. Hey, Austin, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is great. I think for a lot of people, Hope Family Wines is sometimes their introduction to premium California wines, but definitely for a lot of people, wines in the Central Coast and Paso Robles. So yeah, it's exciting to have you, and we hope maybe we can get a little bit of an overview of what your family means to this region and how you got started in the business over 30 years ago as a family.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. You say that the time frame. It's definitely it's a little bit surreal, to be honest with you. But my folks were definitely early pioneers of the region. We got here in '78 and started planting wine grapes, and didn't know what the heck we were doing. But eventually, over time, it was proved to be the right thing to do. But back in the day when we got here, it was really it was not what it is today by any means, and it was definitely grapes were not the number one commodity. It was more of a a dry land, grains and things like that, cattle, and then slowly as morphed into the vineyards. It was interesting because we used to laugh about it, because back in the day the grain farmers hated the grapes because they used a particular product that for weed control. And when they would want to use it, it was usually about the times our vines the buds would start swelling and popping and start to grow. And if any of that particular product drifted, it would shut down. It would smoke the vines for the year and potentially kill them. So it was they didn't like us because they had to stop using those products as soon as one of the grape farmers would say, "Okay, we've got bud break, time to stop using this product." But it's funny. The reason I bring it up is an anecdotal story, because today all those grain farmers are grape farmers. So it's we've come full circle. But coming to the region and in '78 and slowly working our way into the wine industry over time, we were farmers. We sold. We didn't plant the right varieties at first. We quickly learned, but we even were back in the day. We were part of that whole Trinquero's White Zinfandel move. That was we were in the midst of that. We had Zinfandel growing and couldn't sell all the Zinfandel, and then it turned into, well, we'll make white Zinfandel, and we grew white Zinfandel for a long time, and so we've gone through all the transitions where we couldn't sell fruit and couldn't give it away. And then it was white Zin, and then we, were realizing that it was really going to be a premium red. Started planting more Cabernet and things like that, and then we slowly morphed into getting into the wine side of it, making bulk wines and trying to sell there, and that's how we slowly kind of got into it, and then really jumped in 95 in the real way and started Triana in 1996, and that's really how we started. So we were definitely early on in multiple things, not only in wine making in Paso, but also with the release of the Triana Red, our kind of flagship brand, if you will, was a very, very different thing to do at the time. We joke about it internally that we were a little ahead of things sometimes, but releasing a red table wine and with the 96 vintage, at $40 a bottle from a region nobody knew was pretty aggressive.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's a lot of change during that time. There are well over 200 wineries within the Paso AVA, isn't that right? Now,
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I'm probably way under the number.
It's at least that. It's definitely more than that for sure.
Yeah, sure. Hope Family Wines, family's in the name, but y'all are in stores coast to coast. Like I said, you're often folks' introduction, I think, to the region in a number of different ways. How have you maintained, I guess, your hands-on approach over that time coming to scale? Because you certainly haven't lost any of the premiumization that I think you would expect from a family-owned smaller winery, even though you do have the scale. So can you maybe answer that and also give us a sense of just what's the scale like? How big are your estate vineyards, and what amount of fruit are you buying these days?
Yeah, it's all good questions, really, because it's and I appreciate your comments deeply, because to me, as you scale, there's several things that happen. One is typically people lose quality, and that was one of the biggest things that we've learned over the years is how can we scale something that's a premium product and continue to get better. That's always been our goal from day one. We've been aggressive about that, and it's been a fun journey, to be honest with you. And it's made our team has only gotten better and sharper. And we were always, I think, ahead of the curve on not just doing things conventional the way everything's always been done. I'm not a classically trained winemaker by school, which I find helpful, to be honest with you. And my director of winemaking he's been a lifelong friend, and he's started out as a welder for us when we started getting into the industry and building this winery, the first winery we built. So his mind comes from a different way, and I was raised in was fortunate to work for Chuck Wagner back in the day, way before this, and learned a lot from him. And he's also comes from the ground, if you will, comes from the soil, farming background, and kind of learned by doing. And I used to ask him questions when I was young and be like, "What do you think about this?" "I don't know. Try it." And so that's always been our philosophy, is just try it, right? We've done some crazy things, and some people have worked for us and still work for us and have brought things like, "Remember when you tried that? Remember we tried that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that was pretty wild, huh?" But I think that was part of it, and really maintaining, not cutting corners, right? That's the biggest thing. And the other thing on scale too is interesting is for whatever reason, and particularly it's very noticed in the wine industry, for that matter, and not in spirits and not any other things, but as a winery grows, we started getting where some people will say, "Oh, they're just a big brand," and it happened even with Liberty School back in the day when we started growing that brand and scaling that brand, and that was a big brand, blah, 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 it's everywhere. So it's definitely not everywhere. I mean, yes, we're growing, and the quality's still there. The quality's gotten better, if anything. And I would always push him. I said, "Well, do you know why it's growing? Do you know why it's scaling?" Because I was on the road. That's all I did. I mean, when we started, it was me, a salesperson, and Jassy, which is still with us today. I brought him in from the vineyards, and I hoed weeds with him since I was 6 years old, and said, "Come on, you're going to learn to make wine." He's still with us today. He's got which is cool. but because people like it, that's why it's growing. And why wouldn't it? Then some of the Psalms would get aggressive on things. We try and beat. I'm like, I don't understand. And if it was a man and he's married, I'd be like, hey, does your wife have a Louis Vuitton? Oh yeah, it's a great bag. She loves it. Oh really? Huh? I wonder how many bags they made. 3 or 4? You think? How many bags do you think they made? Because I was just in Hong Kong and there was 2 Louis Vuitton stores in Hong Kong. So I think they've learned how to scale something that is luxury, quality, and so why can't we do it in the wine industry? And so to me, it's been almost a quest, right? So we've kind of been outsiders to a certain extent on the way we go to market, and we haven't really looked at it. We've definitely grown under the radar, right? People don't really know our size or scope, but as you said earlier, we're coast to coast, and we're in 36 countries and aggressively pushing to be in other countries, because at the end of the day, my goal is to have Paso Robles be a household name. That's what I want to see happen, and I think it's achievable in my lifetime, as Napa has done with their region. So why not do that? But scaling wine companies is extremely difficult to do. But I'd say the more positive thing of scaling in the wine business is it affords us more opportunities in technology and being able to learn more, right? And really get into the nitty-gritties and the micro understanding of what makes a barrel work. So now we have our own barrel toast programs. We have our own, we were one of the first people to push barrel companies to age staves more than 2 and 3 years. It used to be 12, 24, 48 months. And we're like, why not age them longer? So, we age ours for 5 to 7 years. And we started that a long time ago. We actually had to pay for it because we can't do that. We're going to lose money. And I'm like, okay, well, give us a number. Tell us what it costs. So we did.
Wow.
And then we said, well, maybe we don't want a steam bin. Maybe we want a water bin. Maybe we don't want a fire bin. And we started doing all these different things. And that really was kind of the tipping point for us, where we just kept pushing. It's one of the big things. If it doesn't work, try something different, and don't just do what everybody's doing, right? I mean, you got to keep pushing the envelope all the time. And that goes from farming to winemaking, right? It's from filtration systems to there's so much. I just got done with a meeting with our vice president, Gretchen Roddick, and she's been with us for 27 years, and she runs the company now. And it was funny because we're like, you remember this? You remember that? We're like, what? Why? Yeah, but we just kept grinding and never settled. That's the big thing for us. And as far as where we're at today, when we first started here, we were one of the larger growers in the area, but when we decided to get into the wine industry and really plant a flag and really go for it, we had to build a building, and when we had to buy barrels, we had to buy tanks, and I joke, we got into the wine industry the old-fashioned way. We didn't have any money, so this business is extremely expensive. Because we're always chasing our money. It's not like other commodities where, if say you're a farmer, you grow your crop, we borrow the money for that year, then you get paid. Wine, you don't do that, right? So we've got 2 vintages. We've already bought 2 years of grapes, and we haven't even sold a bottle yet, right? From that first vintage, and we're aging them. We got barrels for them. So there's all this. Your money's always way out there. So it's, anyways. The point of that is that we started selling vineyards to afford to buy tanks and barrels and build a winery. And so now we're down to our estate vineyard, which is where we do all of our Rhones, 46 West, and it's about a 70-acre property dedicated to Rhones in the Tippecanoe Gap district. And the rest, now we have leases. We've got about 50 to 60 families that farm for us on an annual basis. And we've got our own director of vineyards that work for us. And then I've got another independent farming company outside of that we all collaborate and make farm plans for each individual vineyard. And so we're very detailed in what we do and how we get the fruit to where we need it to be. And then we've got, a director of winemaking we've created our own algorithm, like how to gauge grapes quality. And so we're always just constantly dreaming, right? It's people joke that, sometimes they'll say I'm like the head of the Willy Wonka factory, right? Because we create things and do things, and sometimes they don't work, but sometimes they do. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I think back to kind of the idea of scaling and quality tending to dip. I think some people have this preconceived notion that maybe it's somewhere like Napa where the vineyards are the best vineyard land is kind of planted, or it's like extremely expensive, or it's somebody sourcing fruit from, maybe not the Central Valley, like the Central Valley, and it's coming from like way outside the region. But I don't think folks understand enough how young of a region Paso still is, and that like since you guys are actually some of the older folks there, you're able to actually impart knowledge to these other growers, and actually there's all this untapped potential of these vineyards that are actually waiting to kind of come online, and it will allow you guys to scale with quality.
There's no question about it. Which we don't get too deep, but so my folks were early on, so they were one of the founding members of the Paso Robles Wine Alliance, which has done a great job marketing Paso and still continues to this day. And then they were also one of the founding people that got the Paso Robles AVA established. And then I was one of the people that really pushed to get the sub AVAs established. And through all these things, it's been interesting, right? Because, like I said, the Estrella Plain District, which is one of the sub AVAs, was really the workhorse, right? And if you've been here, that's where Treasury has their place out there, and Meridian used to be Meridian, and Everly kind of got going out in that area, and it was owned by multiple different companies over the years. But then it started spreading a little bit, reaching out a little more, and even when we were young, we were always looking at different soils, and we would find, early in the career, we'd find certain Cabernets or certain grapes that would do really well. Like, well, why did that do really well? So we'd dig soil pits and we'd find out. And then back in the day when we were really trying to understand the region, we actually would get in a small plane, and we had all these big USGS maps, and we would fly around and look at the areas. And if we saw something, we would go back out in a car, and we would dig around in there, and we'd ask the people, and we'd say, hey, we think you have potential to grow grapes here. Would you plant grapes? And some would do it, some would not. And now some of the areas that we were really aggressive on early on are now flourishing, and there's a lot of vineyards around there. And now people are watching us too, because they know we're having success with really premium Cabernet, and so they're really watching us where the regions are. We're watching some of our other wineries here now planting vineyards in those areas, and so it's cool to see, right? Because I think that the 11 sub AVAs of Paso, the goal behind that was to just highlight the diversity of Paso and what we can do, right? We grow a tremendous amount of varieties, and we grow a ton of them really well, which is not normal. Typically regions will be able to, they highlight a handful of things, right? Well, we can do so much in this one region, and because of the 11 sub AVAs, there's different soils, there's different temperatures, there's different rainfall. It's so it's a really magical place, and that's one of the things that we can grow a Syrah that's like Côte Rôtie at Northern Rhone in one area, and then we can go to another area that's only 20 miles apart, and we can grow a Shiraz, a wine that's more like a Shiraz, an Australian Shiraz, more fruit driven up front, less structure, and so it's really, it's awesome in reality.
And there are a couple really unique bottle. You have your Mourvedre and Syrah. It's what 66% Mourvedre, 33% Syrah. I just don't know bottles, too many bottles like that you can find widely. I know I've seen it even on the East Coast, which is something that you would think, oh well, we made 5 cases of it and it stayed at home.
Yeah.
I just think that's really unique. And your Liberty School label, which you mentioned earlier, could very well be, the best California cab under $20. And so you just have kind of these interesting little projects where you've been able to have massive success, it seems like, in spaces where, I don't know anyone else doing both of those two things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the same time.
No, thank you. That's a great observation. We definitely pride ourselves in that, and we're super proud of that, and we're proud of offering offering good experiences at all levels, right? Like, because, I'm a consumer at the end of the day too, and I don't want to have to pay $100 for a great bottle of wine every day. I mean, I want to be able to pay $15-20 for a great bottle of wine, and it's doable. And I think some of the reason we've had success in that, like even with the new brand, the Austin brand, which is $20, we have a cab and a Chardonnay, Paso Cab and a Paso Chard, or is another example, right? So you've got Liberty School at 15 to 18, you got this one at 20. Then you've got our Triana Cabernet at 30, which is, I mean, hands down, probably the best value that we have in our portfolio. And then jump into the Austin Oak Cabernet, which is, more of your luxury side. And then we've got all of our estate Rhones that we fill. And then we've also got a whole other program called Cellar Select, which we make wines just for our tasting cellar and for Wine Club. So we've got a whole different market over there that, like, we make a Graciano, we make a Merlot, we make a Petit Verdot. We just get to play, right, and do whatever we want and make things at smaller scale. And so we've been very pointed in what we do, right? We don't want to we just don't want to throw stuff at the wall, right? So everything we do is very long-term thought out, right? The Austin Oak Cabernet brand was a 5 to 7 year thing we looked at. And can we do this? What do we want it to be? What do we want it to be like? What's our goal? Where are we headed? Can we fulfill it? Can we scale it? So we do all that footwork even before we launch a brand, which is a tremendous amount of work. So, I mean, if it fails, I mean, we've lost 5-7 years of time and money that, but at least we did it, right? So now we understand what it's going to take. And that's why Triana was actually born, Triana Cabernet, not the Triana Red, early on. But the Triana Cabernet, because we were practicing. Can we make a premium Cabernet and scale it and continue to year over year? And so Triana Cabernet was born. So that's why I talk about it, because it's kind of like a baby Austin Oak Cabernet, but the value is ridiculous on it. I mean, it's such a great bottle of wine. But we do think about consumers a lot. and we want to be there for all of them, right? We want to be able to capture the people that are just getting into the marketplace and learning, and these brands have success for several reasons, but mainly because they taste like they're supposed to taste. They taste like Liberty School, for example, tastes like Cabernet, smells like Cabernet, has tannins like Cabernet, but not big, and they're approachable, right? Especially for early consumers. And we've spent a tremendous amount of my lifetime and the company's lifetime in understanding tannins and how to not only understand them, but how to manipulate them and not make them aggressive and not make them hard. Because I think that's the old adage of, well, you got to lay it down. It's going to take time. And to me, I'm like, I always hated that comment, right? I'm like, why do I got to lay it down? Why can't you guys make it taste good when you release it? And I'm not being arrogant, but I'm like, I don't understand,
Yeah.
And so,
well, can you actually stop there? Can you speak to that, like ageability at your premium? Like, how much do you think of that with your Austin Hope Cabernet and your Reserve Cabernet? Because I know, like, kind of the regional profile, you want that fruit up front, and you want it to be bold and fresh. How do you think about ageability of those wines, or do you not, like, kind of like you just said?
I do think about ageability, because it comes down to tannins, right? So the tannins on those wines are analytically, they're very high. But what we've done is we've learned how to make them not be drying and aggressive and have a bite, right? We've learned how to smooth those tannins, how to manipulate those tannins, because tannins are a molecular chain. So we learned how to break those chains and through winemaking practices and then manipulate them. And it's crazy, because sometimes it goes against what you would think. Like, even in fermentation, we're adding wood, right? And people, and that's another thing, you go down a rabbit hole, it's like, oh, it's too much oak. I'm like, no, you don't even have any concept of that. It's like, the more oak, like we use a tremendous amount of new oak. I mean, a lot. And none of our wines taste over oaked. They don't. I mean, are they a factor in the wine? For sure. Do you get nuances of different things from a barrel? 100%. But you never have it where it's just like, wow, this just tastes like oak. because of the way we've learned how to toast barrels, the way we've learned how to integrate these barrels, for timing of it, right? Like we have cut up barrels that go into fermentation, like at a certain point. We know when to put them in there, and these tannin chains grab onto them, and actually it changes the whole complex of how the end result turns out. Instead of where your mind would be like you're adding more tannin to it by adding more wood, so the wine should be more tannic, not smooth and soft and supple. So we've got all these different things, and from temperatures to, it's like, it's like a circus around here when we really get deep into it. And it's but ageability, to circle back on it, they do age because they do have a lot of tannin on them. We've been going through all of our old vintages, and I was really aggressive early on in my career on even when we didn't have much wine. I would always save. I want to save wine, and when we'd save like a pallet of wine, which is a lot of wine, right? Way back in the day, and it would be like, while we were saving, everybody's always on my ass. Now we got a warehouse full of all these wines, and so I started tasting them over the last 2 years, and all the way back from '96, and some of them are great, some of them are okay, some of them are awesome. We did it for a couple of reasons. One is to be able to see if how we're doing, will these wines age, and then secondly, be able to, my aspiration back then, didn't know if we'd have success or not, was to be able to reintroduce them. So like somebody came, we had some people in town yesterday from Tennessee, our distributors, and they went to a restaurant downtown, and they were like, had the 2015 Asimov Cabernet on there, and they were like, is that a mistake? And they ordered it, and they're like, the owner's like, no, Austin gave me these older vintages, and so now I'm doing that, right? Because that is another factor to help really promote and cement Paso as a world-class wine region, right? When you see those kind of things. Does everybody necessarily like to drink old wines? No, I don't think they do. I think it's another one of those wine fairy tales, right? Everybody wants to say they want to drink old wines, and I've done this experiment 1,000 times. I'll bring old wines to a gathering, or even do it in a closed scenario, and be like, oh. And as the night goes on, you'll watch it, everybody will taste the old wines, but then they gravitate to the new wines, and those are the ones they drink. And so the next day, the younger wines bottles are gone of these really great fancy wines, and then the old wines still have a half a bottle, because it's not what people drink. So but it's more of a, I don't want to say novelty is not the right word, but it's more of an experience, right? Like you get to taste something older that has aged 15, 20 years. It's just cool to be part of it. Be like, oh, wow, that's cool. I had a 2000 last night, a 23-year-old bottle of wine. And I tasted it, and some people, they love those kind of things, but, it's a small percentage of people. So to me, I think it's just cool to be able to experience it. So when people come into town, we'll open them up. We'll do every once in a while, we'll just put out online, be like, okay, here's the vertical of 98, 99, 2000 Triana Red, and sell them. And I've had to adapt to that too, though. So because people don't know how to deal with old corks either, right? So I started putting in. It cost us money, but it still didn't matter. I did it anyways. But I put those cork pops in there, and then did a little video like, "Hey, just shove it in there and blast the cork out. That way you won't have any issues."
That's really smart. I was gonna say there's companies like Penfolds, I guess, that do they'll recork your bottle every so often. But I hadn't heard of that approach before.
So we just talked about that yesterday. It's a great point, because it's been on my list, but we've been just constantly going. But what we're going to do is break these things down this next winter, uncork them, the ones we think still have time and because cork's gotten better over the years too. There's lots of things that gotten better over the years. So 100%. We're gonna uncork and do that same thing that Penfolds does, because it's I think it's important, right? People like that stuff, and it's cool to be able to see 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old bottle of wine.
Yeah, no, certainly. But I also agree with what your sentiment on not everybody likes the old wine. I always find it really interesting when somebody's drinking an older wine and they want some of those development notes, but the best older wines always have there's still so much fruit and so much concentration. It's like, well, you didn't have to wait that long to get that. So it's kind of interesting. Well, so with I guess I'm just kind of curious about how you think about your portfolio now and then where it might be going in the future. Are you going to try to continue to expand under the current labels, or are you going to try to continue to develop this dynamic portfolio? Because like even like something like the Troublemaker, like some people might not even know that's part of the umbrella. I think it's kind of an interesting mix.
It is it is interesting because we've got a wine for everybody, and it's I don't know. I feel like we joke about it internally. I'm like the worst marketing person in the entire world, right? It's like why do you have so many damn names, right? and people don't know that we have Triana, we have Quest, we have Troublemaker, the Austin brand, the Austin Oak brand, Cellar Selection, Liberty School. We have all these different things going on under the umbrella of Hope Family Wines, which is it's good. And I think over time we're winning the battle. People are slowly seeing it because they'll look at the label and say, oh, they see my name on it. And they're like, okay. They're slowly putting associations together. And it really comes down to us doing a better job educating the trade, right? The gatekeepers and the people that are actually the ones that are close to the consumer that they're talking to on a daily basis. And, really that's our focus lately is really educate them. And, we just released that Austin brand. We felt that there was a hole in the market. We used to throw stuff all the time, but I think we were early and we weren't as smart back then. So we've got brands that have died that we've just sat in a box and sit there. And, we tried to do a premium box wine long time ago. And it was a brilliant concept in my mind because we designed the box actually to fit on a $7.50 shelf in a supermarket. So it was, it only took up a bottle's shape, and it was just almost the same height, and it was a cool brand. But we're too early now. Everybody else coming back around. And I'm like, nah. We tried to release RTD. God, 15 years ago, we had Troublemaker actually. We had it in those look like those little tennis cups. I think there was a brand that around right that they're plastic and you peel the top off and a little grenade.
Wow.
Couldn't get those to go. And now everybody's, why don't you bring those back? I'm like, no, you just force us back there. We're not doing it. We're doing something. We'll move on, do something different. But I think
that's fine. I'll pay you to send some of those and add them to my collection of oddities.
They're super cool. I think we're, like with that particular brand, the Austin brand, we saw that, and the Austin Oak brand for that matter, right? I mean, we really believe that, we wanted to be the standard for luxury Paso Robles Cabernet, and there was nobody doing it, and we wanted to make a $200, $300, $400, $500 bottle of wine of our competitors are doing, but be able to sell it for $50 to $60, and that's what we did. And that's part of the reason we had so much success, because it does the people that are drinking it know that they have to pay $100, $200, $300 to get that kind of a wine, and we figured out how to do it not at that price point. And we're fair too. We do think about consumers, right? We don't want to gouge, and we want to make a living, and we want people to enjoy our products. But I think as we look to the future, we're always like, what's next? Like the biggest one we've been pushing right now, which not a lot of people know, is a Quest, which is a brand that we've released. It's a sleeper, and it's starting to slowly catch some traction. But it's primarily Cabernet Franc based. So we're betting that variety is really going to be next, because it's a great can be a great bottle of wine, but there's not a ton of them out there that are great, right? There's a lot of average Cabernet Francs, but not a lot of great ones, and most of the great ones are really not accessible by price and by accessibility in the marketplace. So that's one that we're really pushing, and it's accessible. Ours is $25 to $30, so it's not crazy expensive. We're excited about that. I think that's going to have some legs. We're looking at other regions too, to be honest with you. California is small. I mean, but it's huge, and it's like we've barely scratched the surface, right, of what we can do in this region. So we're always looking at things like that. I am been looking. We are now the largest grower in the state of California of Pinotage. So that's something that I'm very interested in, that I'm hoping in the next coming years we'll be able to release a brand that'll be dedicated at its own brand to Pinotage. It's find the grape really interesting. It's so it's a blend. It was Pinot Noir and Simsol. They bred those two together, and that's the byproduct. So it's dark, and as we all know, and it's kind of funny, but it's Pinot in America today is dark. It didn't used to be, but it is now, and so consumers have learned that they're believed that Pinot is dark, and it can be and it cannot be. So either way, it doesn't matter. Each his own. But to me, I think it's an easy name to say. We've made a little bit of it because very little around. You can't really find it. We were made like garage. We found some in a backyard. It's how we made some of it. But I think it's an easy name to say. Pinotage. It's got Pinot in it. It's dark. It's got a little more structure to it. But it still could be fresh and drink youthful. So I'm hoping that is going to be something in the future for us. We've been toying with the idea of this Graciano. Have you ever heard of this variety?
Yep.
So I wanted to make a comment about it. When we were at your tasting room 2 or 3 years ago, I think the attendant really liked this because she poured everything that you guys had there, and one of them was the Graciano, I believe. Did you guys start making that accidentally? Is that
Yes,
what I remember?
100%.
Okay, yeah. Maybe you can tell that story briefly.
So there was a variety or a clone called Monastral, which is a famous clone in Spain of Bovedra, and we were one of the first people to really start planting Rhones in this area, and so we were on the short list to be able to get this new variety once it went through quarantine, all these things. So it was myself and Matt Trevison from Lina Colado and Justin Smith from Saxum. He got some, and so we all got a little bit, and we planted it, and we're like, okay. And this was supposed to be Monastral. Well, in Graciano was also known as Moristel. And we think the butters, I don't know, maybe it was a Monday morning and heavy weekend, I don't know, but they said, okay, you need to bud all these Monastral plants, and they grabbed the wrong buds that said Moristel instead of Monastral. They do look similar, and I think that's what happened. So we get all these, we planted them, grow them, and they grow different, they look different, and ours was planted next to a Movedra block on our estate. And I'm like, man, these really look different. And then our first harvest, I'm like, I tasted them. They're totally different flavor profiles. They're not aligned. And when we pick, and I'm like, so I text Justin Smith from Saxon. I'm like, hey man, if you didn't get any of this new clone, I'm going to send over a box and you make it. You see what you think. It's really different than Bovedra. I don't know. It's very odd. He goes, I did plant some. I didn't know he had planted some. He says, I planted some, and so I don't think it's Bovedra. And I go, I don't either. So he sent it in to Davis and got a DNA, and he came back and found out it was not Monastral. It was Moristel, which is Graciano. And so I was pissed for 3 years. I'll be honest with you. And we tried to make it into wine. Just like, I don't know. It's a different animal. It was really difficult to work with. I mean, it's easy to grow. It grows wonderful. It doesn't seem to be susceptible to disease, which is a big thing these days. And it's got tons of color, tons of structure. It's kind of gangly. It's just very, very odd thing. And anyways, we finally learned how to make it good, and I reluctantly released it because I had this just like this hate against it. Like you took 6 years of my life, and you're not what you're supposed to be. And we released it, and then our customers loved it. I'm like, huh. And so we made another one, and now we can't make enough of it. I mean, it's crazy. Like, I mean, there's like a rush on it. We released it to on the web. What was it? Week before last, it was just like people just ordering it, and now they're buying it, and they're like, some of our wine club stewards, like, they have people that you call me when it's released, and it's $90 a bottle. It's expensive, and I'm like, so I don't know. So I keep thinking to myself, but I don't want to get crazy and really go, but we are toying with it. Maybe down the road it could be another variety that, as consumers in the U.S. get more educated, I mean, that's one thing. I mean, you guys do a wonderful job educating people. I mean, it's just the knowledge for people now is much easier to come by, which has been a great thing for the wine industry, because we've always been very stodgy, very archaic, very pretentious, and it was really difficult for people to get into the wine industry until, the last, I think, say 10, 12 years, where more people like you guys got involved, and people are making it fun and easy, and not like, you don't feel like, you can ask somebody in a store, like, can you tell me about this wine? And they're going to be happy to tell you about it. Whereas, like, if you asked 10, 15 years ago, you said a word or a variety to a som at a restaurant, you're embarrassed for life, so it's demystifying wine.
I've never pronounced a French word properly on this podcast. But one way that you guys did that really well, I think, was actually at the start of the pandemic when you did those cooking videos in your house. And I watched a lot of kind of, companies make first time content during that time period, in that, I guess, first 6 or 9 months or whatever. And that was some of the best content that I watched that during that whole period. There was just something about, being there in your home, how kind of easy you were with the audience and bringing them in, not making the food, like the cooking process, fussy at all.
Right.
And just, I thought that was really good content. You guys should do more of that. I'm sure you have all the time in the world to just stand around.
Yeah, we do
cook,
that.
But
That's very sweet of you. Thank you very much for saying that, because it was interesting, because we were finally, coming in. I'm like, hey, I think this internet thing's going to stick around. We probably should get more serious with our website. And my wife and I were working on building a new platform, all these things. And we started, like, I guess it was in whatever, the year before the whole COVID thing. And it was like, it was 2019. We started it. We started building this platform. We're understanding them. I think this is, we're headed. We got to be available to these consumers, and our tasting room's so busy. There's so many people all the time. It's like, we need to talk to our audience. I mean, that's the reality, right? So what I just said a minute ago. I mean, it's important to be transparent and explain things and let them feel part of what you're doing, part of the journey that we're all on, right? Because it's more fun for them, and it's cool. So we were planning all this stuff, and then boom, that happens, and then we're like, well, here we go. We had our platform already built and released it right then. And we were actually in London, got kicked out of London in 2020, and just started, I went through COVID depression for a little bit. And after that, like, okay, we got to go. We didn't let anybody go. We didn't take any PPP. We just repurposed and said, okay, everybody, let's start figuring out something to do. And we had managers delivering wine to people's homes and dropping it off on their porch, and I'm making videos, and my wife's making playlists, and it's just like, we just whip for it. And so we still do them here and there, but I do need to do some more of those, because people did enjoy them. I didn't know if, at first I was like, I don't know how it's going to come across, but I love to cook. I cook every day, and people kept saying they like it. I'm like, oh, okay, because I'm really big on the whole approachability thing, right? I mean, not only with our wines, but just the style of how we come across, right? I think there's too much in the world that they overcomplicate things and try and make things cooler than they should be, right? I mean, we're already in a cool industry. What do we got to act cooler for? I mean, it's like we're providing, what we do is, to me, is one of the best products in the world. I don't know if there's anything better. It brings so much together, right? I mean, you can break up over a bottle of wine. You can get married over a bottle of wine. You can get in a fight over a bottle of wine. I mean, it's just, but it brings people together like no other thing I think there is out there, right? Maybe food be the only other thing that bring people together, to where you can have an intimate group of people that you don't even know, and you might be best friends by the time it's over. It's probably not going to happen over a bottle of scotch, a bottle of whiskey or beer. It's probably not going to happen. But over wine, there's something about it. It's just, there's this leisurely thing that brings people together, and so it's really cool. It's cool to be part of that. You think about that you're in people's homes, and then they tell you about it, right? And it's like, wow, this is awesome. Providing happiness, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Billy.
No, I was just gonna say I completely agree. I was thinking about the I just went to a whiskey tasting, and I think that's an interesting note. It's like by the end, some people either just like way too buzzed or something, and it's just like, yeah, it's nothing like a wine environment.
No, it's totally different.
You guys have a pretty big like I just call it your aesthetic sensibilities. Kind of a lot of your wines feature artwork of some kind, either by artists or by animals or by children. It sounds like, based on what I've been told and what I've read. Can you just talk a little bit? And even your tasting room is different than most tasting rooms that I've been to. Kind of little pod sections. Feel like you're sitting in a living room when we were there. Can you just talk about some of that? And is that your sort of eye and inspiration? Is it your wife's? Is it someone else? Where does that come from?
So aesthetically, that's myself and my wife. My wife's does an amazing job. She's an artist as well. She's a photographer, and she was a touring rock and roll photographer for a long time. So she's got a great eye. She's got great style, design, and so we redid the tasting cellar actually pre-COVID. It's funny, we've been kind of going at it. We wanted to feel like to your point, like our living room, right? Because that's how we live, and we open and bring people in, and it's fun and it's cool. It's not stuffy. It's not. We want you to. One of the things why we really started pushing towards that way was I always felt, even being in this industry my whole life, when I would go to a winery, I felt intimidated walking out. Right? There's like this usually some big ass door, some long walk that you got to go to this ominous bar way in the back to like check in, like, hi, I want some wine. It's like, it's already an intimidating industry, and then you make it even more intimidating by the way it looks. And so we're like, we want it to feel comfortable, natural, and fun, and make it easy. And so you're not. So I mean, even today, I don't know what experience you had when you were there, what level, but we we greet you when you walk in. You don't even get off the parking lot. Like, as soon as you step off the parking lot, there's somebody right there with a glass of wine and greets you. And so we take that whole thing out of the picture equation, right? So you're immediately relax, okay? They know me, tell me your name. They've said that, okay, we're going to get you to your place. And we wanted to create the not only because I don't like the intimidation factor of the wine side of it like that, and I also recognize that these people have gone out of their way to come see us, and it's like you go into a restaurant, right? You made a conscious decision, you chose that restaurant, you're going there, you want a good experience, and so that's how we run it. So each person comes, and we know you're going to have your own host. That host is going to be with you the whole time. They're going to take you and sit you down. Inside is like nice little, like you said, like your living room. There's little vignettes throughout the inside of the building, and then outside of the building, I love landscapes. So I'm like, how do we create like cool little, like, almost like cabanas, like they do in Vegas, right? And it's like, so we built these little planters and put bamboo privets, and so like each place, when you sit outside, you're out amongst the vines, and you have your own little living room, right, with your people, and so we cater to that, and everybody gets their own experience. They'll give you as much education or as little as you want. They read you, they're pros. So we shut down once a month and do training. Like, we're really intense about customer experience. We want you to leave there feeling good, and we know you spent your time, your money, and it's not, wine's not cheap and time's not cheap, and it's so for us, we want people to walk out of there feeling great, like they're super happy, they're super pumped, they learned something, they felt good, because at the end of the day, it's an experience we're creating for you, right? It's not not Disneyland, man. You're not jump on to get on the ride and going out of there. It's a journey that you're on with us, and so it's good. We're very hospitable. Very much, that's our biggest thing, and treating everybody. But it's interesting because it's a machine. We get a ton of people through there, and it's really difficult, right, to be able to make everybody happy. And we seem to find the way. I've got a Joe that runs the place. She's awesome. I mean, she's got it figured out. To be able to keep everybody in line and everybody going, and it's definitely it's fun to watch from behind the scenes. But yeah, I think it's good.
It blows me away how flippant some wineries or restaurants can be. I mean, like we said, there are 200 to 300 wineries in Paso. You could go to any given one, and certainly people are going to go to some of the bigger names, the names that they came there and knew before. But that doesn't give you a free pass to, just kind of shuttle people in like cattle and
You should
out.
be trying even harder.
Exactly.
That's the way we look at it.
Yeah, and if someone comes and they go to 3 wineries, the chances that they're going to at least look at going to you guys is really high, right? If they come from outside of the region. So, you might be their first touch point with the region. So, yeah, always have appreciated your advocacy for Paso, especially as we've watched it kind of grow over time and really has even more connection than I knew there. So,
thank you.
Billy, anything as we wrap up here?
No, I just think that additional emphasis on how great Paso is, and I think, again, to your other point, like the diversity of the wines and the terroir. I don't think a lot of people outside of, or even in California, really know that there's limestone soils in certain parts of Paso that really aren't found much anywhere else in California, much less some of the names that people might know, like Napa. So I think there's not only this cool day-night temperature thing, there's unique soils. It's there's actually more of there is a reason behind why the wines are special, rather than everybody says their region's special and can make anything. It's kind of cool to to dive in and actually explain that, and that's why there actually are sub-AVAs. It's not just we want to have our own name. It's actually different, and they make different wines, which are all unique and special. So I think it's great that you guys are helping promote that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, we actually have a soils kit that we send all of our sales staff. That our viticulturist, she's created, Stacy. It's really cool. She does great. If you guys ever come out, I'll get her to give you guys a tour. She's super knowledgeable. I mean, she'll talk shale, schist, and all kinds of stuff all day long with you. I mean, it's really cool. But we'd have a little kit we've made and to be able to show buyers and different people, and educate them. Well, this is what this soil looks like, and this is what this soil looks like, and why this is important, and why gravelly soils is so important for high quality Cabernet. Why limestone is important for Rhone varietals in particular, and different things like that. So it is interesting. There's so much, right? It's to your point, right? And it's really cool. And it's not like everybody says, like, oh, we can do everything great here. It's like, no, we can't do everything great, but we can do certain things, good, and we can do certain things world class, but it takes a sum of all these elements, right? The right soil, the right temperature, right clone, right farming method, and you can't. So it is exciting. It's a very special region. It really is.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. Thanks for your time. Keep up the great work, and thanks for doing so much to promote just not only the region but quality winemaking. So I appreciate it.
Thank you both very much for your comments and having me on. I very much appreciate it.
I just want to echo Brady. Thank you so much for everybody listening. If you haven't already, go to your whatever platform you're listening on. Just throw us 5 stars. We don't need a review, but I was looking at our Spotify rating yesterday. Somebody gave us less than 5, so we're no longer 5 anymore. So I was sad. So everybody subscribe, follow, hit the little icon so that you get your notifications when new episodes come out. And we're excited for 100 more episodes, and hopefully, it won't be 100 new guests. It'll be 100 new interviews at least, but it'll be really exciting. So cheers. Thanks for that.
To check out our current offerings and to sign up for the Vint platform, find us at www.vint.co. That's www.vint.co. For questions, comments, or feedback on the Vint podcast, please email us at support@vint.co. Vint and VV Markets are offering securities pursuant to Regulation A. Our offering circular as amended can be found on the SEC website. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Investments such as those on the Vint platform are speculative and involve substantial risks to consider before investing. We may provide communication that may contain certain forward-looking statements that are subject to various risks and uncertainties. Information provided in any communications, including this podcast, is not legal, business, or tax advice. All prospective investors should consult a legal, tax, or business advisor concerning the subject matter of any communications and any offering.